Welcome, the show is about to begin.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
The studios don't want to release the films if the theaters don't reopen, and the theaters don't want to reopen unless they know that there's going to be films.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to open unless New York and LA are open, because New York and LA are 20% of the domestic market. 20% of the domestic market. That's two cities. No major chain's going to reopen theaters unless New York and LA are open.
Well, since we're in this, should we just go at this point? Because this is the upfront talking points that we will be hitting.
Yeah,
so
welcome,
are we in?
everybody.
Are we in? We're in. Hey,
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. That's it. We're already in the news.
We're in the news.
All right. Well, we're gonna get to the theater roulette. I have I have a couple other little things we can talk about, but Grease. You know the movie Grease prequel. Set to go.
Prequel to Grease?
A prequel to Grease.
Set in
42
Australia.
years in the making.
Set in Australia, right?
That's a good question.
I think it is. I think it's gonna...
So here's the deal, right? If you know the song, the lyrics, it's the entire movie. We know how Danny and what's her name? Sandy meet up, and he tells one's tale and she tells the other. So I don't know. Brett Haley is set to direct this thing. I don't even know if it's going to be a musical, but somebody seems to be very excited. Like, why would you not make it a musical, first of all?
Although it is going to have big shoes to fill.
Well, that's just whoever you get. Oh, I hope they stunt cast those two as grandparents. That's 42 years later. Who's asking for this thing?
You know what? Honestly, this is like sort of the Hollywood MO, is like where you take a property that has an existing fan base, and the fan base for Grease really hasn't gone away.
No.
You know, so, and then you bank on the fact that people will recognize the property and want to go and see it. It's called pre-sold material.
I know, but it's you're preaching to our generation, and but it's going to be a younger cast.
Of course,
it's going to be it's going to be a more contemporary soundtrack. If it's a musical, are you going right back to that well, or are you going to write new stuff that seems a little more in tune with the times?
Hey, well, we have Hamilton. Musicals are riding a crest right now with the popularity.
Well,
of Hamilton,
I do believe that this was in development before Hamilton like came out of the gates there theatrically, but I don't know. I just found it very interesting. The article I found, they were very enthusiastic about this, and I guess they have a script.
I'm keeping an open mind on it. I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo it.
We all poo-poo stuff.
We do.
I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm just asking who's asking for it.
Well, if you think about it, Grease was a huge hit, and Grease 2, although it was not appreciated at the time, apparently has a cult following. So
it does have a cult following, especially in my family, because my wife actually likes that movie a lot.
I love Grease too.
Do you?
Yeah. Okay, so if you're a girl, Grease 2 is empirically the better movie.
Okay, because she's the empowered one? Because
she does not change herself for the guy, which is what actually happens at the end of Grease, correct. Where Sandy has to literally transform and leave everything about herself behind to get Danny.
But then he'd try to change himself
but
as well.
not to the extent that she changes herself. So, yeah, Grease 2 is actually, and Grease 2 I think is underrated even in terms of its music. Some of them are stinkers, but there's some good songs in that movie. And I think too that what you forget is that a lot of people my age saw a lot more of Grease 2 on TV, like just in the cable kind of
correct.
like
that I do give yes. I had a buddy who loved Grease except for all that singing. So take that for what it is. All right, let's get into the meat of this because this could be a 2-hour discussion right here. Obviously, any nerd worth their weight in Star Wars action figures knows that the end of July is Comic-Con. Except we don't have a Comic-Con.
Right.
But they've gone virtual.
As we've come to know
Well, that's the thing is that they've gone virtual. There's over 350 panels. And it's all free. You just subscribe to the YouTube channel. And as of today, which is Sunday, which would be the last day of the show, 130,000+ people have gone to these panels. So we've gotten some news coming out of there. And I think that what Christina had mentioned earlier with some of this this theater roulette crap that's going on. Because obviously we've been, as Jim likes to refer to, chasing the dragon. In this case, Mulan. Mm-hmm. Mulan and Tenet, which were the two big tent poles that's it. These movies come out and everyone else is just going to follow suit. And all the other studios are like just waiting. They're just waiting for these two movies to plant their feet and say, screw it, here's what's going to happen. Mulan has been unscheduled. It is now officially pulled from any release date. I don't know if it made it into the show, but we were talking about the Godzilla versus Kong. Right. Which has been backed up, but the toys are already made and sitting in some warehouse in Hong Kong.
Spoilerific toys, I might add.
Yep. Well, spoilers are already starting to drop for Winter Soldier and Falcon as well, because those toys are sitting around just waiting. But as far as Tenet goes, it appears that August 26th, 28th, it could be sitting in theaters, just not here. Overseas.
No.
They have made a decision to go where the money is. You've got some of these overseas, countries that are back up and running. They've got limited theaters. We need to fill seats. So you do worry about the pirating. Now there's a fair amount of movies that we've already had that are now on video on demand here that have not been released in theaters over there, including Onward, but there was a bunch of other ones. But they want new stuff. At this point, probably everyone over there has seen that stuff pirated. So yeah, Tenet could be released in the theaters, just not here. And now you run the risk of some serious spoilers. He's notorious. Nolan is notorious for, we're going to give you an advanced screening of this, but you can't talk about this until the day of the release. You don't. And that's great. That's, I want to go in and just be surprised.
I think the big thing is that he wants people to judge for themselves, which never happens once you start reading stuff on the internet.
Yeah, there's going to be a Wikipedia page that tells you the entire plot.
But at the same time, I mean, it is different, I guess, than when your friend went to the movies and he came back and it was word of mouth. Dude, you got to go see this movie. He's not giving you a plot point by plot point. He's just saying it's worth your time. Now you're right. Anyone who has a blog set up can now write the entire.
But it's up to you if you want to avoid such things. You don't read the articles. So.
Right. You can't tell your friend to shut up.
You can't tell
You can. Actually, you can. Jim does that weekly. Shut up! I don't want to know. So yeah, it looks like UK, France, and Spain all potentially will get Tenet in the end of August.
But we are going to get Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted Face the Music. That was another announcement, which is it is dropping August 1st on video on demand and select theaters. Now, I want to know who these select theaters are.
Yes.
Because did we not have this article or this discussion that these studios were holding firm that they would not screen a movie that was being simultaneously released on video?
Well, that was big chains. I mean, there are still a few independent theaters left in the U.S. So And independent theaters can do whatever they want. It's September 1st, though, isn't it? Not August?
Oh, I'm sorry.
September.
Did I say
Yeah.
August? September. I apologize.
And by then, some other theaters may be open. But this is the thing that makes the most sense. Their movie, even if theaters were open, would just be overwhelmed by the tidal wave of backed up tent poles that would be released. So if they want the movie to reach its audience, it only makes sense for them to do video on demand at this point.
No, I'm excited, and we will be covering it. I did not realize that Galaxy Quest director Dean Paraso.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed after.
So that made me a little excited
Quest.
for it. What didn't make me excited for it is that it has a runtime of 78 minutes.
Oh, I'm excited for that.
78 minutes
for that. Yes,
that's
in and
Dumbo.
out, baby. In and out. Drop the mic. Leave them wanting more. Hey, I just watched Chopping Mall last night. Again, 77 minutes. It was just as long as it had to be.
Well, I guess I hope they have a story to tell. That's all I got to say. Anybody else got some news?
I'm surprised you didn't bring this up, but I saw this week that Donald Glover is going to be in a Lando Calrissian show.
Has that been confirmed? Because most of the stuff I was reading was that it was all...
Well, I mean... Nothing is anything confirmed now.
No, I guess not. I did stay away from it,
But from what I was reading, yes, it's gonna. I'm very excited by that. I thought he was great.
Oh, absolutely.
Solo.
We need to, I thought Solo was fantastic.
But it's been so denigrated.
We've had this discussion before, which was also the fact that it was coming on the tail end of The Last Jedi, which people just
divided audiences.
It divided Star Warsdom, yes.
So I'm surprised that they would greenlight this and keep the Boba Fett project at bay.
Well, you're getting your Boba Fett fix with The Mandalorian.
Yes, you are.
It's
maybe more so than we think. Still, that possibility is still there.
Well, even if Boba Fett only plays a minor character in season 2. It's still, I mean, I hate to say it, but you could just change its name to Boba Fett, and I don't think it would change anything. He's still a Mandalorian armor running around.
So I'm glad that they are continuing that story with Donald Glover as Lando. And hopefully maybe incorporating some of the plot elements from the Solo movie as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, they left a lot of that stuff dangling, including, Darth Maul, so... And you could see...
You know what? We should watch that again. One of these days.
You guys watch it for the show?
We did.
We did when it was in theaters, but that was so long ago.
It was so long ago.
We were kids then. We didn't know what we were talking about.
Do we know what we're talking about now?
A little bit more than we did.
A little bit more. I don't know. Oh, wait, we didn't talk. There's one other news item that came out in Comic-Con. We got our first 5 minutes of New Mutants.
Don't make me say it again.
And, well, it's still on track for August 28th.
This is ridiculous.
They have not changed.
We'll eventually get the whole movie. Every year.
Well, that's my fear.
We'll get another
that's
5
my fear.
minutes.
Is every week they're just going to release another 5 minutes. They did have a panel. So there's a huge, I mean, people are just salivating, waiting for this thing. And they released a new poster, which I pointed out looks very reminiscent of Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors.
Yes, you're right.
I'm so on board for that because that is one of my favorite in that whole series.
Wonder if they'll have a Dokken theme song as well?
Maybe. Oh, Dokken. Wow.
We've talked so many times about the theaters and video on demand or something. This is a movie that they just need to release in video on demand. Yeah. There have been 40 plus movies that have had their release dates postponed. 40 movies. Yeah. Are they really gonna release the New Mutants?
Somebody so believes in this movie right now.
Bill and Ted is going on demand. I think New Mutants would be a perfect on demand.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But once again, everything is well, I mean, I guess it's, things are starting to move. Decisions are starting to be made to a certain, whether we agree with it or not. Tenet now has a game plan. All right. Well, that's all the news I have, kids.
It's a lot of news this week.
It is a lot of news,
Yeah.
and we really just kind of skimmed the surface on some of that stuff. So news out.
We didn't announce yet that this is our third and final 80s episode, and it didn't really turn out that way. We were just embarking on a summer movies series, and it just so happens that we all chose an 80s year to focus.
I think we're just showing our age, to be honest with you. Not that that's a bad thing.
No, but this is Jeff's episode, and he chose the year 1984.
1984. It was a very good year, my friend. Theatrically, it was a pretty damn good
year. There was maybe too much in theaters during the summer of 1984.
When we hit our confessional on the back end of the show, it's like you look at this list and you're just like, if anybody who like my son going, all those movies came out the same year. Like, you don't even know what to do with yourself. You'd be in the theater like every 2 days.
We were.
Because there was a fair amount that I saw in the drive-in. I'm like, I must have just lived at the drive-in.
Every weekend, you had to go to the movies.
Yeah. So let's see. So Jeff chose 2 movies for 1984.
He did, yes. The Maestro chose 2 movies.
Yes. One, which I've been just hankering to tear into. And the other one, I think Christina had mentioned it, but there was a point where I'm just like, you know what? I just want to go back and rewatch it. So I don't really have any emotional connection to it. But we are going to be talking about The Last Starfighter and Top Secret. And
let me guess.
Should we do first?
Top Secret is the one you did not have an emotional connection with.
Top Secret is not the one I had an emotional
really? Because I shed a few tears. I shed a few tears.
No, actually, I was very connected to Val Kilmer. He's got some moves in that movie, huh? Wonder whatever happened to him.
He does. He does.
He was like a big movie star. He was like in the making.
And out of the gate, he was a big movie star. That was his first big role in a film.
Yeah. So, but I'd like to talk Last Starfighter first. So I actually watched this I have the 25th anniversary Blu-ray, but we just passed its 36th anniversary because it came out July 13th, 1984. 36 years ago. Let that sink in, kids. That's a long time ago.
I'm letting it sink in.
So anyways, it's up to me to kind of
it's your show,
lead us into this. Let's see. So let's go. If nobody knows what The Last Starfighter is, go watch it right now. But we're going to talk about it, and we're going to spoil it to it. So basically, the premise is we are introduced to this character, Alex Rogan, who is in his best, he's doing his best Luke Skywalker syndrome. Stuck in a no-end trailer park. Wants to get out. He's waiting for that college application to come in the mail. He's hankering. He doesn't want to hang out with his loser friends in their pickup trucks. But he spends all of his time playing a video game called Starfighter.
An arcade game.
An arcade game. Old school arcade game. If none of you kids know that they used to be stand-up. You had to sit in your couch at home with your headphones on. You actually had to go to an arcade and you had to plunk a quarter into that damn thing and you had to play your heart out. And this one is actually called Starfighter. And basically you are being recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada. And Alex spends way too much time playing this video game because he has a pretty hot girlfriend who wants to kind of take it to the next level. And he really is like, yeah, sorry, honey. I'm not wasting this quarter. It's like, come on, dude. But we find out pretty quickly that this game has ulterior motives. And he gets kind of sucked into an adventure. And this one's pretty short, too. This is not really, I was just laughing at Bill and Ted at 78 minutes. But this one was under 2 hours.
It's relatively short, but I still think it could be a little shorter. I think the pacing gets a little saggy. We
can talk about that too, because they did go back and fluff up some of the stuff that doesn't necessarily partake or have to do with the his Star League and
due to the test screening. So in a reversal, rather than take stuff out, they went back and did reshoots to add some more stuff in.
Yep. Yeah. So Laura Marr, produced this, which is a company that's no longer in existence, but it was still nice to see that logo pop up.
Like Vestron Video or something like that.
And I thought, I was trying to rack my brain because I'm pretty sure I did see this in the drive-in, and I thought I saw it with a double bill of Krull, but Krull had come out the year before.
Yeah, so Krull was 83.
So I don't think that was what, so I don't know.
Although they may have, it's the drive-ins used to sometimes
pick up
an older movie.
You mean kind of like what we do?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly what we do. Take a new release and pair it up with
They did not used
movie.
to be 2 first-run movies like they often are.
Yeah,
now.
It could have been Krull then. It could have been that, because I really was racking my brain, and I think that I do know for a fact I saw Krull in the theater. But the one thing I guess I didn't realize is that Nick Castle directed this.
The Shape.
The Shape from Halloween.
That fascinated me to no end, because when his name popped up, I'm like, this cannot be the same guy.
And so I watched both of these movies with Skylar, my daughter, and I will tell you, they're entrenched in Halloween and horror stuff. And yeah, Dad, not only did he play him in the original Halloween, but then he replayed them in the 2018 Halloween. I'm like, all right, you just schooled me.
He's slumming. Yeah. He's a big-time director, this guy.
And he was a writer on Escape from New York.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
This guy's got some creds. So that just elevated this for me.
Yeah, and this movie is like basically the dream of every boy in the 80s who loved Star Wars. Uh-huh. I mean, like, that the idea that you would be recruited to save the universe because of your awesome arcade skills, like,
oh, absolutely. It's like every kid now thinks that they're going to become, they're going to be a YouTube star because they're, they kick ass at Call of Duty, or COD as they refer to it. And I grew up in a trailer park for a fair amount of years, not quite to that level. Now, those weren't even really trailers. Those were campers that were abandoned. That was not the trailer park. A trailer park, we had full mobile homes, but
and they had a beautiful mountain view in the background.
That was actually a real location too. That was a real set that they found, and they just kind of moved a couple things around. But the Blu-ray was pretty nice. I feel like every week I just talk about, these movies that I've seen numerous times on VHS or on television, sitting down with my, my crystal clear 70-inch, 4K, which I don't have, but I'm just pop the Blu-ray in. And sometimes it's like watching a movie for the first time again.
Yeah, I got the Blu-ray from the library, and it was pristine.
Detail. Some of the stuff, even in, like you said, the trailer park, some of that stuff that's going on in the background that you'd never really picked up on at all. So Alex Rogan, who was played by Lance Guest. And this kid, whatever happened? I mean, I know he went on like, Jaws the Revenge? He played Michael Brody in Jaws the Revenge. That was the only thing I came up with that I even recognized that he's done since this. But I thought he had nice, I kept getting vibes of like a young Robert Hayes.
He's very funny as Beta.
Well, that's it. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, he carries this whole movie. I mean, yeah, you got the fantastical with Greg and the alien Centauri. We'll talk about this character. But this whole movie's on this kid's shoulders, and he rises to the occasion. Is he a Mark Hamill type of Luke Skywalker? Like you said, it's a male fantasy. He just wants to get out of this town. And he just happens to be really damn good at this video game.
And he is so earnest in his desire to leave this trailer park. And when he comes on, to Christina's point, when he comes on as Beta, which is maybe a quarter of the way through the movie, you're so used to seeing him as this kind of humorless, down on his luck kid, regardless of him making the high score at Starfighter.
Oh, and he was a little smarmy about that.
When Beta comes on, it's like, this kid has chops. He can play.
Yeah, he's playing two different versions of himself. I did get Ready Player One vibes right off the bat after watching this. And again, just to the level of, the kid living in a trailer park and, immersing himself in a video game because the world around him sucks.
Right, or maybe Ready Player One was inspired by Lost Starfighter.
I know. I know it was a book. I'm just, I didn't. Again, now that I've seen it or read the book, you start picking up on this stuff, and you're like, oh, okay. So, but never once when watching Ready Player One did I be like, oh, this is ripping off the last Starfighter. So, So let's see. I don't know what else we got. The opening scene, the musical score is phenomenal, by the way, in this. I think it's just so fun. And of course, the opening screen credits, just a direct Superman ripoff.
Yeah.
Right, with the losing
with the music as well. It was very reminiscent of the Superman score.
But I loved the music. Who was it? Craig Safin wrote the soundtrack. I thought it was pretty impressive. So he lives at this trailer park with his mom and his girlfriend, and there's a cavalcade of B-actor weirdos that mostly older people. Maggie's there because she's living with her grandmother. There are a bunch of little kids running around, and I don't know if you caught any of this, but Will Wheaton is one of those kids.
I read that all of his scenes were cut.
There's apparently there are 2 scenes where you can see him in the crowd, but he all of his dialogue has been cut. So, but you have to know what you're looking for. But that's neither here nor there. So Starlight Starbright is the name of the trailer park, which I thought was pretty cool. Imagine living outside that thing, blinking in your house every night. Horrible. But Maggie, who is his girlfriend, played by Catherine Mary Stewart. And then we have his little brother, Lewis. Oh, the Starfighter logo was a direct Atari ripoff, by the way.
Catherine Mary Stewart, I always get her mixed up with Alexandria Paul, who was in Christine. So I'm like, this is the girl from Christine. No, this is the girl from Night in the Comet, but they're the same girl. No.
So he takes out the commander ship in this video game. It's like the equivalent of saving the princess at the end. You basically just told me you just basically told me the end of the movie now by showing me. But
it's the big boss level.
Yep.
So he's taken by Centauri, who comes is Robert Preston, the Music Man.
Yes, Harold Hill from Music Man.
Yep, and he's basically playing.
I was going to say, if you listen to his dialogue and the way he kind of rolls that stuff off, it's very musical. And there was one behind the scene featurette on my Blu-ray, and it was fun watching him talk about this, and they said that he was game for anything, and he was just a thrill. It was a pleasure to work with on set, and yeah.
He even has a little bow tie like Harold Hill.
That's true. Yeah.
And I thought his makeup was probably the best of the alien makeups in this, and it's too bad that you didn't see more of that. But because he had a magic handkerchief that he kept rubbing on his face,
he would wipe his face
off.
Go
back and forth. Yeah.
So you're right. So after he Alex breaks this record, and he's very smug about it too. Like mom comes home and he's like, hey, guess what I did? I broke the record. Did you clean the cat litter? Did you take the garbage out? No, I broke this record though. But we also find out that he did not get his student loan, so he will not be going to college. He will forever be stuck going to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters with his friends.
Yes, he will.
Except, as you mentioned, Centauri zooms in on his Johnny Cab / DeLorean, which was slightly ahead of its time since Back to the Future did not come out until a year later.
Yeah,
with his
I got some heavy DeLorean vibes.
Yeah. Even to the point, think about Back to the Future 2, where it flies and the wheels fold up. That's exactly what this does. So,
and it's the first instance of the computer-generated effect.
Yeah, we are going to talk about this. Is the big milestone in this movie, because you figured 84. You really had, what'd you have? You had the Genesis Planet graphic in Star Trek II, which came out in 1982.
Tron, right?
Tron. There was a lot of practical stuff with Tron, but, it wasn't until 85 when it was young Sherlock Holmes, where it was the stained glass knight that he fights. That's really the first use of a physical character being created in CG. But you're right. These ships and especially his car up front, these are all like this stuff had never been done before using just, polygons and computer graphics. And we will talk about that extensively on the back end, because there was a lot of people in the studio that believed that this was not going to happen. And they were waiting in the wings. They wanted to just make it practical models like every other movie up to this point. It's dated. Like you figure, my kid with a friggin' Mac Pro and, Maya could probably do these effects on their laptop now.
Right. It had a very tin toy feel to it.
Yeah.
Pixar
Yeah.
stuff.
You look at that early Pixar stuff, and some, the physical ships work much better than, like, say later on when Alex and Greg are hiding inside the asteroid. The asteroid looks horrible. They just didn't have these guys were creating this stuff on the fly. Working around the clock, sleeping underneath their computers. You would have to render this stuff for days just to see if what you did was correct. If you punched in a wrong number or whatever, and it comes up and all of a sudden the entire shot is destroyed, you have to go back and reprogram it.
Right.
And there's an interesting period of overlap. So like in the early days of physical effects, most films' physical effects didn't look that great. Obviously, there were exceptions, like Harryhausen and guys like that who were innovating. But by the time you get to early CG, practical effects had advanced so much, and those guys were like real craftsmen, that a lot of times the practical effects from the early CG era age better, way better.
Oh, absolutely.
Than the CG. But this is a problem that I have with CG in general, is that even now, a lot of practical effects still look better on screen than CG.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times now, like these super crisp digital renditions of these films actually are to the detriment of those CG effects, where, you can see clearly that the CG effect is not integrated with the background.
Right. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because I just read an article which is for Jurassic World Dominion, that they are going back and trying to use practical effects for some of these dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, Jurassic Park was a milestone in CG, and that was seamless. That was the first time where you saw this stuff and you're just like, holy.
Yes,
it really was seamless.
But it does get forgotten in a lot of circles that there's some amazing animatronics in there.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, the whole Velociraptor scene. Yeah, but again, I don't want to go down the Jurassic Park rabbit hole, but yeah, the T-Rex encounter at the beginning where he's chasing him, and it cuts back and forth, full figured T-Rex, and then you got the close up, and it's an animatronic head with the foot. And it's seamless. It really is like unbelievable.
And I tend to be more of a fan of practical, just because I think it ages better. I think that, again, like you're a human being. You can tell when someone's trying to trick your eye.
Yeah. That's right. That's why the CG human has been so hard, because by just nature of humans, when something's off. You can look at something and be like, that is not real.
In Jurassic Park, in the opening scenes, when they first see the Brachiosauruses, like that's a full daylight shot. And now in the cold light of day on Blu-ray, you can tell that that's not in the background. And
that's not a real dinosaur.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You have ruined my childhood.
But when again, we don't want to go down Jurassic Park rabbit
let's
hole,
go down the Jurassic.
But just that scene still gets sold
by the actors.
By the actors.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter that the Brachiosaurus isn't perfectly perfect because the actors are selling it. Sometimes, like with some of these scenes in the last Starfighter, you're just seeing a graphic on screen. There's nobody to sell it for you.
It does not age well. Those scenes. It is very obvious, but again, they're at the infancy of the whole integration.
Right.
One more Jurassic Park story, and then we'll move on. Which was, they re-released it in 3D a number of years ago, and I took my children and two of their friends, and we came out of the theater, and Skylar's friend said that was the greatest movie I have ever seen in my entire life.
Aww.
Blown away. Now, this is also the girl who came to my house and refused to watch Back to the Future because she doesn't like black and white movies. She goes, what year did they come out? I said 1985. She goes, I don't like black and white movies. I said, you're lucky I don't kick you out of the house right now. So let's get back to Last Starfighter. We had mentioned the fact of Beta. Now, this is where we're introduced to Beta, which it's just a character in the shadows. Centauri gets Alex into his ship. And, by the way, meet my friend Beta. Shakes his hands. There's electrical pulse.
Zap. So
and the next thing you
like,
know,
what did he gathered his DNA or something with that zap?
Something. And then off he goes. Beta gets left behind, and we find out that he is a replicant. He is a robot set there to replace Alex while Alex goes off to help fight the Armada. Although this kid doesn't know what the hell's going on. All of a sudden, Centauri takes off his face. He's got alien red eyes. Next thing you know, they're flying past Saturn. That's pretty quick ship to go from Earth to Saturn in that amount of time, by the way.
And then he explains that the whole Starfighter game was just a recruitment tool to get him. If you can beat the game, then you can be a Starfighter. Now, apparently, this is the only instance where this setup is used. Everybody else is there. They know that they're Starfighters. They've been called upon legitimately.
Yeah, it's a weird, because I said the same thing, which was, first of all, how long has this thing been sitting there? Because for him to master it, he's had to play this thing numerous times. How long has Zer been in power? And yeah, he seems to be the only one who's in shock that he's now sitting among aliens. Right. I mean, there's a bunch of aliens or what, and they're like, what do you mean you don't want to fight? Yeah, they're basically calling him out as being a wussy.
Right. Well, Centauri, they say that he's a, like a flim-flam man. That's what they say on the bonus.
Well, there you go. Right down Harold Hill. He didn't stray too far from that gig.
No, and apparently he's a wholesaler of arcade games as well. He must have a business on Earth. He's been spreading in key locations, and you get a little bit of this backstory. He's been spreading this, and the game that Alex has been playing was meant for Vegas. And somehow it ended up outside this convenience store at the trailer park. And, fortuitous, who knew that we would have found you at this location?
Fate, destiny, blind luck, who knows? Yeah. But I got you now.
And I'm going to get paid once I get you back to the headquarters.
Yeah. But you also find out that Earth is not part of this alliance, that we are not to that level. So he pretty much broke the law of whatever prime directive they have by putting these things on our planet to begin with.
Right. And I found it amusing that the whole frontier idea, they know what's best, so they're going to create this frontier, this shield to protect the galaxy, much like this whole Star Wars deal with Reagan in the 80s. So,
right, yeah. just a big giant shield in space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, my son says Centauri's alien face, which Jim mentioned earlier, the makeup looks like Cad Bane from Clone Wars.
Yes.
So
he is one of the I was going to go back because his character, that alien species shows up for like a millisecond in A New Hope in the cantina scene.
So we were speculating that Dave Filoni was a fan of Last Starfighter.
It could very well be. Well, again, you would have to go back to like I said, that character does exist in the original Star Wars as a background alien. So.
Oh, well, I mean, the cantina, it's like, it seems somehow like aliens keep sprouting up every time you watch it. Like, wait.
There's more every time.
There's more.
Yeah, there are scenes that were cut of the two, I think it's the Tanaka twins, the girls. There's two twin girls that are hanging out with Han Solo at one point. They've been completely cut out of the movie, but they still have their own backstory and action figures. So
of course.
Yeah, you got to mind that. So, but yeah, so we also, this is where we meet Greg, who I don't think we were told like what his species is.
I don't know.
He's from Enemy Mine, right?
I was just going to say that. He looks like Louis Gossett Jr. in Enemy Mine, which came out a year later.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Maybe the same makeup artist worked on both movies.
It could be. Although there's a great line at one point. Alex says, I'm about to be killed 1,000,000 miles from home with a gung-ho iguana. So yes, Greg had that alien lizard skin looking thing.
Also, he's kind of in the same realm as the aliens from V, I thought.
Yeah. Which oddly enough, we'll
also 1984.
I know. We'll be talking about that in the back end. Yeah. So we're also, not only are we introduced to some of these other aliens, the leader of this armada group, whatever. What was it? Was he a president? The Rylos leader? But I guess the bad guy, Zer, is his son.
They look like a bunch of grown Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, right. Overgrown foreheads with...
There's a nice effect where Zer speaks to them as just his giant Wizard of Oz-like head in the middle of the headquarters. So Zur and the Kodans have like an uneasy alliance where Zur is selling them secrets of Rylos.
Yeah, and they had like no love for him. Again, that was where my question, which was, all right, how long has this been going on? Because they obviously had no love for him, or like they were just tolerating him. And at the end, they take him out in like a heartbeat, and it's like, you could have done that like two years ago. Just grab his arm. He'll drop the weapon.
And when they like shoot those 5 meteors at the headquarters, they take those guys out so easily from like 1,000,000 miles away.
Oh, you mean that missile command special effect?
Yeah, the missile command special
missile command.
Like, they take out every starfighter like that. It's like, why couldn't you have done that?
Right, correct. No, we had to wait. We had to wait to the plot point just to get this character. Alex wants nothing to do with it, and so Centauri brings him home. But what we didn't talk about is the fact that now Beta is replacing Alex. And this is some nice stuff because you got Lewis, his little brother. They live in the same room. You got bunk beds. Obviously, the Beta unit takes some time in order to transform his look. And there's that great scene where he's underneath the covers. Maggie comes to take him out, and he's been sleeping all day or whatever. And you just see him pop out of the covers and he's like molting. His eyeballs are popping out.
That was akin to a jump scare. That was like the corpse from Night of the Living Dead is what Beta looks like when you take off the
when Ben Gardner's head pops out of the jaws of the boat. So yeah, you're like, what this? And those we talked about. I mean, Christina mentioned the fact that this is slightly bloated, but they went back and added a bunch of these Beta scenes with Beta Alex and Maggie and the friends, because he does have great comedic timing and it is funny. But so Alex comes back and he finds out that he's been replaced. So that's a fun little thing. But now we have what was he? Well, he was a Zanduzan bounty hunter, which is another cool physical, character effect with this big flat head with these 2 eyes on either side, little tiny maw.
Yes, Zur is aware that the Starfighter is going back to Earth, but in order to clean things up, he sends this assassin after Alex to kill him anyway, so he doesn't pose a threat. Why
not just shoot down Centauri's ship as he's hiding? He's like hiding in the rafters of the local 7-Eleven there. It's like, you had a gun 2 seconds later. Just shoot the kid while he's standing.
Right. And Alex is given this little key fob from Centauri saying, if you change your mind, just hit this button and I'll come right back. But seemingly forgetting about the Beta.
Yes, right? You think you'd clean up your mess? Leave that Beta?
So this is why Alex hits the key fob, because you got to get this Beta thing out of here. Now, I think this is what Christina was getting at with the pacing. I think this seemed to be too much, going on. Like, okay, why the whole thing with the key fob, and now he's got to go, he's got to come back, he's got to go again.
Yeah, I think if they added the Beta scenes, they could have cut a lot of this stuff. The problem is, like, obviously, when I was 10, or whenever I saw this movie, this is fine because it's paced like, it's a kid's movie, really.
Yeah.
But now, as an adult, I'm like, it just takes too long to get to the point where he's actually in the Gunstar training, which is the point,
which is what you want to see, right? Because he was there, he was right there. You see the entire armada, you see the ships. He's slack-jawed. You're slack-jawed because you're like, that's real. This is the shit he's been playing with on the video game. So you'd be like, yeah, and the kid's like, yeah, I don't want any part of this. It's like, yeah, you do. This is all you've been talking about.
Yeah,
leaving the friggin' planet.
Like, it literally makes no sense for him to be like, really, I just want to go back to the trailer.
Yeah, Maggie.
And be sorry that I didn't do this for the rest of my life.
And then kick myself. Would he ever play that? So if he ever went back and none of this happened, would he ever play that video game again? Probably not.
Because he's beaten it, right?
He is beaten it.
There's no reason.
So now he's got no purpose in life. So, yeah.
I found it funny is once he was in his outfit and he was in the gunner, he's got no peripheral vision with that hood on. I notice if he looks either left or right, he can't see left.
I think that's why. I think that's why the seat like gyrates. It's like a gyroscope that spins around. Yeah, it's. I mean, visually, it's nice. The costumes are nice. You got Greg in the ship. You got Alex in the ship. Obviously, like we mentioned before, once you start cutting from inside the cockpit to the outside of the ship, it becomes very jarring because it is very obvious that this is rudimentary CG. But when they were making this, the guy who designed the ship like tried his best to make sure that it was as practical as possible. And it's a prototype too, right? This is the one ship that's a prototype. They never used it. He doesn't. They make mention. Greg makes mention of this death blossom, but we don't actually know what it's going to do, and it may just blow us up.
This made me think of Iron Man 2 when Rhodey is like, "Why didn't you open with that?"
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Like, that's a one-off. It's a one-off.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah. I couldn't open with it.
It's super convenient that the ship that Alex is on happens to have this Deus Ex Machina weapon.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Now, were they saving this ship for Alex to begin with?
I don't know, right? Because if that ship, it's like let's put the new kid in the crap ship that we don't know if it's going to make it or not.
Well, if he's the only one that went through this recruitment, then he's the only one that they know has the skills to pilot one of these things.
That is true. There's a lot of questions. Again, you just go with it. So you get this nice little chase sequence because it really is just one ship against the entire armada. They all just happen to be flying in formation.
Their major plan that they come up with on the fly just happens to be exactly how he beats the ship in the video game. He goes,
yeah, well, like I said, the video game just tells you the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we just got to take out the command ship. So, indeed. So we think Centauri's dead. He's not. Although the beta unit did sacrifice himself to save.
Yes, that was sad.
Blowed himself up with his buddy's truck. We'll put a scratch on that, Rogan. Yeah, about that.
But that guy, he's taken up in the emotion of the ending as well. He's forgotten about his truck by the time he's waving goodbye to Alex.
Bye. And again, I think that there was multiple Prime Directive Alex broke landing that ship back on Earth. It's like, dude, what are you doing? But yeah, he comes back. He saves the world. They give him a nice hero's welcome. And then he goes back and he picks up Maggie. Because, Maggie can't exist without Alex.
Right. So she's like 18 and she's like, yes, I will throw away all of my opportunities in life to go to space and watch you fly.
Yeah.
Right.
I would want to set it up front. Now, do they have couches up there I can sit on as you're going to do this? Can I lounge somewhere?
And would he still be playing video games? Would they even have video games up there?
The thing is, the ending is one of the things that makes this movie seem like it's going on for a long time. Like, does he need to introduce Greg to everyone in the trailer park?
Not only that, how would they understand him? Because there was a whole sequence where they had to put a universal translator in Greg, because that is nice when he first lands. When Centauri first takes him to the planet, they're all speaking alien. You're not getting subtitles. He doesn't know what they're saying. You don't know what they're saying. And then they give him a universal translator. But then later on, Greg lands on Earth and he's able to communicate with these humans that were living in a trailer park, including the old lady with the shotgun.
He's got a Babel fish, I guess.
Maybe Babel fish. It's still fun to watch. I enjoyed it.
It was fun. I knew the story inside and out, but watching it, I'm like, I don't think I've ever actually watched this movie. The way that I know it was from the Alan Dean Foster novelization, because that was like between 82, 85. I would buy every single sci-fi movie tie-in novel.
That's funny because I would do the same thing with the Marvel adaptations.
And I
read the comic. I read the comics before I saw the movie.
And I had that too. So I'd convinced myself over time that I had seen this because I knew the whole story. But watching it, I had no memory of the CGI effects. That's why I'm thinking to myself, I would have loved to have seen this. I just want to know how this played to a 1984 audience. Were they in awe, or were they like, this is like too cartoony?
I think it was a bomb.
Well, it wasn't a bomb.
I don't think it was a bomb.
But again, we talk about the fact that there were so many movies coming out, and what it was up against. It might have got lost.
It cost $15 million to make. It made $28 million. In its initial box.
Probably all 15 of that went to the Cray computer to render the ships. So going into that with the studio, which was the fact that it took they could have done these effects in 5 months using physical models and shooting them, and instead they decided to go the CG route, and they stuck with their guns. 17 months was basically what it was, and they're like, dude, you got to do this quicker.
I have to believe that hurt them, because if you think about it, they're kind of trying to catch that Star Wars wave, right? And so this movie is coming out after Jedi.
Yes.
When people had been waiting for Jedi. So if it had come out in that interim period between Empire and Jedi, they might have been able to fill a niche like where people really wanted,
just needed that
kind of
sci-fi
thing.
fix, yeah.
But like, you know, after Jedi, people were probably like, well, you know, I don't need to go see that. I just saw Return of the Jedi, you know. That I bet that probably hurt them in the long run. 17 months.
Yeah. But
that's a long time.
You know, without these guys innovating this stuff, and like I said, I mentioned before, you know, these young guns are sitting there, you know, they're working around the clock. They're living in their computers. You know, there was on the special features, some of them, they had a bench around the outside of the Cray computer that they would nap at, just waiting for these things to be rendered. You know, he said that you'd be in the cubicles, and all of a sudden you'd hear a hoo-yah, and it was like prairie dogs. Everyone started popping their heads up, and it was like, I just figured out how to do multiple lighting, and then everybody would run over to the guy's desk. So this really was the infancy, the cusp of everything that we saw after the fact. These guys were just tearing it apart and said, we know we can do this. Dennis Muren is on this. Dennis Muren is a very famous ILM. He actually, you know, we talked Jurassic Park earlier. And he said they brought in a test of X-Wing fighters in using this technology to show Lucasfilm. And Lucasfilm was very unimpressed. And Dennis Muren's like, I'm looking at this stuff, and it's a very simplistic, there's a couple X-Wings, and one of them does a loop-de-loop. And he's like, and my brain is just exploding because I'm thinking, how would I even do that with a practical model? How could I plan that out and make that? He says, so I already saw, you know, the use in the application, as rudimentary as it was. These guys were just cutting edge. And they, you know, people are telling them, you can't do this. So the minute, you know, some of these creative people says, you can't do that, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do it. So it's, like I said, it doesn't hold up. It is rough, but from a historical context of CG, it's still pretty impressive.
You know, and it's making me think what Christina just said about how people had figured they had already seen Jedi. They'd seen Star Wars. Why do I have to see this? Jedi, obviously the close of the trilogy. And in a way, that was kind of the last really successful, because there was the sci-fi boom of the late 70s, early 80s that Star Wars created with Alien, Superman, sci-fi fantasy. And that kind of died with Jedi, not, you know, to that level, that extent. Yeah. You didn't really see a big hit sci-fi space opera kind of a movie again after Jedi, because I think audiences, okay, the trilogy's over. I'm not going to invest myself in something that's subpar when compared to the Star Wars trilogy. Then you started to get into things like Back to the Future, which was more on the comedy side, or Goonies, or Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, but you didn't really get that Star Wars level kind of an event sci-fi movie.
No, you had Star Trek 3 that came out this year, but it was lackluster. Yeah. The one thing I thought was cool, which was Atari did create one prototype of the actual freestanding arcade game. So there one exists,
and they promised it in the closing credits.
Yeah. And it never happened. Galoob actually had prototype action figures that were never produced.
Really?
Yeah.
I did read that Atari, they made a Last Starfighter game for the 2600.
Yes. Yeah.
But the executives actually saw the movie and decided not to release the game.
We're not going to do that.
And they just renamed it Solaris, and they put it out anyway as a different name. Same game.
Different name. Yep. Yeah. 2009, I guess there was talk of a sequel reboot. And then in 2018, there was a gentleman on Twitter. I can't remember his name offhand. That leaked some like production art, you know, and all you see is the Starfighter, and you know exactly what it was, but I don't think anything's come of it.
It was July 2019. Gary Whitta from Rogue One.
Okay, yes, that's right, yes.
Yeah, and he announced that he was writing a sequel with Jonathan Boodle, who was the original writer of Last Starfighter, and he posted the concept art on Twitter. But the problem is apparently the rights for this movie are really weird and complicated, because Nick Castle apparently had written a sequel many, many years ago, but they couldn't figure out who owned the rights and who was going to greenlight this project, so it just disappeared into the ether.
Maybe.
Someday.
Honestly, like all these companies, it's like, don't they all own each other now? Like,
right, it's all just like one.
Yeah.
Isn't it all just one big thing?
I think Disney just secretly owns them all. So yeah, it was fun. I was
Gene Siskel called it a Star Wars ripoff, but the best one. Faint praise there, but
faint praise. It's like, damn. I'd go 3.5 buckets on this one. Maybe I'd give it a half bucket just for the special effects and where it sits in history.
I think I'd give it 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little lower. I'm gonna say 2.5. For some reason on this viewing, I really noticed how slow it was. I really did. And I just kept thinking, why didn't they clip this, and this, and then just like speed up the pacing a bit? Maybe especially, I think, in contrast with the films we've watched the last few weeks, where they've all been, super fast, like get into the story, get moving along, get out in 90 minutes. Yeah, I definitely think that there's like some judicious editing could actually have made this a better movie.
Fair enough.
There you go.
Last Starfighter.
So before we move on to our next feature from 1984, let's go to the concession stand, and we will be right back.
A cup of whipped hot chocolate tastes great right now. Carnation's Cocoa Supreme, the delicious hot chocolate drink with the light, delicate flavor you like. Wouldn't a good hot cup taste good right now? Ask for a cup of whipped hot chocolate at our snack bar.
Our second feature is, we just mentioned this before, Val Kilmer's debut called Top Secret. And I'm just going to quote the great Roger Ebert, who wrote, to describe the plot of this movie would be an exercise in futility. Because you cannot do this movie justice by trying to describe it. It is produced, written by, and directed by the team of Zucker, Abrahams, and Zucker, who,
with a name like Zucker.
That's right, or Zaz. They were actually referred to in the industry as Zaz, Z-A-Z. And 4 years prior, they had a monster hit with Airplane. And if anybody who has seen Airplane knows, it is just sight gag after sight gag. It is stacked with silly, just sight gags, one-liners.
And that's really all Top Secret is. It's gags with a movie built around.
Well, it's funny because I did read an article, I think it was the 20th anniversary, where they were all being interviewed, and Val Kilmer as well. And they apologized because what happened was they had seen a movie, I can't remember. They saw this one movie, like a 50s airplane movie, and
Zero Hour.
Mm-hmm. And they took that premise and basically just loaded it with jokes. Mm-hmm. So it has a structure, it has a storyline, and they apologized profusely that they were immediately giving, range to do a second movie, and they pitched numerous things, and I guess, the studios were like, yeah, that sucks. That's horrible. And they latched onto this, but they're like, there's no story structure whatsoever. And they even apologized to Val Kilmer because they feel they did him a huge disservice because his character there's no arc for this character whatsoever. He doesn't grow, he doesn't change, he doesn't have a point at all.
No. He just kind of moves along with the 77 minutes or whatever it is.
It's just one sight gag after another.
I read that same article, and I remember in the article Jerry Zucker said Airplane is more of a movie and Top Secret is a joke book.
Yeah.
So, like, if that gives you an idea of what this movie is, it doesn't have anything resembling a coherent plot. And in fact, there are plot threads that just sort of like disappear and are never resolved.
Yeah.
So,
but you just I'm going to tell you right now, I cackled 20 plus times watching this and muttering, that is so stupid. But it's just, even my daughter was just like, like, I'm like, Sky, watch this, because there's so much going on that you don't. And I caught a couple things. I've seen this movie numerous times, but again, you start catching little things in the background that just, they're throwaway jokes.
I feel like this comedy can be so polarizing because, like, what's really super funny to one person is not at all funny to somebody else. And my husband said the funniest thing about this movie was watching my stony face throughout.
Because it didn't tickle your funny bone in any way,
No,
shape, or
not
form?
I did not laugh once. I did not laugh once. I didn't even smile.
Does he have something similar to a lie detector, like a humor detector that he hooks up to you while you're watching these movies?
Are you alive?
So I feel like this is, like I said, like, humor is so idiosyncratic, like what appeals to somebody,
Is
what
this
somebody
the Three Stooges scenario?
finds funny. Like, there's just a lot of things I wish I could unsee in this movie.
Listen, one of the first lines, again, they apologized for this as well, which is one of the first lines that Val Kilmer's character says, Nick Rivers, who is this Elvis type of rock star that he's being brought to Germany for a concert. And he's on the train and he's listening to this tape, How to Learn How to Speak German. And the first thing he learns how to say is your daughter 18? Mm-hmm. And they're like, we really wish we could go back and take that out.
Yeah, you see, my issue with this was I didn't know when it was supposed to be taking place when it first started. I'm like, I thought this was a World War II movie, but it's cover of Rolling Stone and everything else. And then I read that they were having issues developing this because one of the Zuckers, I think it was David, was always trying to make some kind of a rock and roll World War II movie, and he didn't know how to do it because obviously those two periods don't coexist.
But somehow they magically...
So Top Secret was a way that they could do it, where they bring in East Germany, but it happens in 1984, and so
I had no idea what year this movie was set in until Hillary mentioned the Carter administration.
Right. Well, that's just it. It's all over the place. You don't. They're just nonsensical. Sequential. It's silly, but there's so many lines that are, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. Either you get it or you don't.
In the position of defending your choice here, Jeff.
I am gonna do well.
No, I just said humor is like a very individual thing. Okay, really, it's like horror movies, right? It's why absolutely. Sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, that's why next week you won't get a word out of me.
It's why you can have, like, it's so hard to have a super successful comedy, and by the same token, it's so hard to have a super successful horror movie because, like, what some people find funny and what some people find scary, like, another people, sometimes when you're watching a horror movie, something you find scary, the psychopath next to you thinks is hilarious.
Right, correct.
So, I just think that it's the kind of thing where it's like, either this is your brand of humor and you're going to really enjoy this movie, or, like, this is not your brand of humor and you're not going to enjoy this movie, and this is not my brand of humor.
Right. I thought it covered a very wide spectrum. Like, there were things that I cringed at, but there was other things that I thought were laugh out loud funny.
Yeah, where, like I said, I cackled like a 4-year-old.
When you get Omar Sharif at the beginning, it's like, is that Omar Sharif, really?
And he plays it so earnestly. And there's multiple. It's going to almost be a musical because there are probably 4 or 5 dance numbers in here that I don't remember being quite so prevalent, but it starts right out with Skeet Shooting, which is a take on a Beach Boys, riff.
I mean, there's so many musical numbers actually. The one, and Val Kilmer did his own singing. Mm-hmm. The one thing this movie proves is that Val Kilmer should have been in Grease too.
Yeah.
Now I hear that he went to the audition as Elvis in full costume.
Nice.
And that's how he won the role. And he played Elvis, if you remember, in True Romance, the Tony Scott.
That's true. That's right.
He played Elvis, and you never saw him. He was just in Christian Slater's head. But then again, he played Jim Morrison in The Doors as well, which was really bizarre casting at first. I don't know if he's an Elvis fan, but he's got those Elvis moves down.
Oh, no. Yeah, like you said, the dance moves and the choreography in this are pretty impressive. You mentioned the fact that you either get it or you don't. I do remember trying to we were on Boys Weekend or whatever, and we popped in Airplane. And the dads are all sitting around laughing our asses off for like the first 20 minutes. And my nephew turns around and he goes, at what point is this going to get funny? And it's like, okay, let's find something else. So, but again, like I watch this with Sky and every sight joke was, I mean, apparently they have the same sense of humor I do because we were laughing side by side. And I'm like, again, you know, you get sidetracked, you got the phone in. No, watch this joke, watch this, you know, and the stupid thing with the cow, which is on the poster, but it's just, again.
Or no, my favorite was when the Hillary character says, I know a little German. And it's
yes. Oh, there he is.
A little German.
And there he is. All right.
Or the legs on the desk with the East German, whoever he is, with his legs up on the desk, and then he gets up and it's just a fake pair of legs that are still on the desk. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The prop room.
And we didn't talk about Peter Cushing, the whole backwards.
Yes, they filmed that like 17 to 22 times. Yeah. There's a whole sequence where they go to the it's a Swedish bookstore. And Peter Cushing.
It was a bookstore. I don't remember where it was.
I think it was a Swedish bookstore. She's actually making a point. Swedish bookstore. So yeah, but like you said, Omar Sharif, who is a very serious actor, by the way. But I think these guys.
I wrote down Omar Sharif. Why did you do this? Did you need money?
But think about all the guys that were in Airplane who were serious actors. Leslie Nielsen had never done anything funny in his life. Robert Stack, like these were all serious actors that they put into these roles, and they said Omar Sharif was game for anything. They shoved him into that compact car. They're squirting water in his face. They got the windshield wiper going over his nose, and they said he loved it. So
good for you, Omar Sharif.
Because no one has ever asked him to do something like that.
I laughed at that when he came in as the compacted car.
There's whatever.
You know what was bizarre was the whole Blue Lagoon thing.
The Blue Lagoon reference is very dated.
That is super dated, the Blue Lagoon.
Super dated. But at the time, what, Blue Lagoon 80?
1980, I think.
80. So it was only 4 years. It was only 4 years off. Every girl in my high school read that, like they were fighting over the novel of that book.
Oh, well, that's because it was racy, Jeff.
I know.
That was a racy book. We read Blue Lagoon and we read the V.C. Andrews thing.
Flowers in the Attic?
Flowers in the Attic,
Boom.
yes. Because it was racy.
Racy. Yes. There's one song he does, How Silly Can You Get? Weird Al Yankovic has gone on record as saying that this is one of his all-time favorite movies. And he does a song called One More Time. And it is almost a direct version of that Nick Rivers song. So if it's good enough for Weird Al, it is good enough for me, my friend. And there's that scene where they will say it almost sounds like a bad movie, and then they literally stop and look at the audience. Look straight at the camera.
And at that point, my husband and I paused the movie and saw that there was still a lot of time to go. And I said,
apologies to the family.
I said, it was, so Chris didn't laugh at it either.
No?
No. He actually
Am I just a perpetual 4-year-old? Is that what it comes down to?
He said to me, this is the longest hour and a half of my life. And I said, we might be able to quit out on this. I said, Jeff quit out on The Departed.
I did.
And then we were both like, no, we'll see it through. Maybe we'll laugh once before the movie's over.
Boy, you would have left the room with me because, like I said, I literally cackled. He's fighting Nigel at the end, and there's a whole underwater sequence where they're in a bar. It just I don't know. It tickled me.
I'm not taking
I can't
it away
defend
from
this
you.
in any way, shape, or form.
I'm not saying you should, because to you it's funny. See, but this is what I mean. Like, to me, the funniest movie ever made is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and a lot of people don't get that movie at all.
Yes.
But I do have to say that Val Kilmer just arrives fully formed. Like, you wouldn't think that this is this guy's first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't realize he was Juilliard trained. Mm-hmm. He is a classical actor.
Yeah, he's like a super serious.
Yeah, no, when he came on board, they actually said that you kind of didn't know. There were days where you didn't know which Val Kilmer. I guess you get stories about him being quote unquote difficult, but he was taking it so seriously because he really he in earnest, he wanted to do the best possible job. And he does play it straight through this whole movie. He plays it straight. As much as the weird shit going on around him.
It wasn't a huge hit. The budget was $9 million. It made 20, so it made its money back. And, you know, the reviews were mixed. But he survived. And again, we were talking about Real Genius a couple of weeks ago, which is a much better movie, but it didn't fare that much better at the box office. But he survived that as well, because I think people, to his credit, realized that he was something special in these movies.
I did not see this in the theater.
No.
Yeah. I definitely didn't.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But I've mentioned this before. We had a friend named Karina, and her dad had 2 VCRs. And so he would go to the video store and he would
copy
rent them. And he would copy them. And they had a massive library. And, you know, you could shove 3 movies onto a VHS tape.
Yes, you could.
And we watched this ad nauseum. Probably every time I went over to her house, we would watch this stupid movie.
Yeah, this was a big HBO movie. This was on a lot on HBO. And I remember the ad that they would run on HBO would always have that Peter Cushing with the giant eye. So that's the thing I remember the most.
Yeah, part of the problem when this movie was released was that they didn't know how to promote it. They had a hard time cutting a trailer for it.
Because what is it about?
Well, that's just it, right. You can tell me it's a spoof on German World War II /
like
Elvis
I can see
movies.
Audiences like, oh, I don't want to see a World War II movie. It's not a World War II
well, what
movie.
are the Nazis doing? Right. It's like, but just
right, and the fashion like that they're wearing is very like 50s, 60s. So it's
like
really hard to tell. You know,
it's not meant to take place because, like you said, she makes a Carter administration joke.
But I think that's confusing when you're trying to sell the movie to an
I don't know. I don't think I ever lost sleep going, when did this actually take place? Because it's like another world. It's just, you know.
They moved the release back a month from the beginning of June to the end of June. It ended up coming out on the 22nd of June, 1984, because they wanted to avoid Ghostbusters, Gremlins, that whole rush.
That wall. Oof. That's exactly what September is going to look like for us. All these movies are going to drop at once.
And Ghostbusters and Gremlins, those are like, when I think of 1984, those are the 2 movies that you think of.
Those are milestones.
You know? And I don't remember seeing, I obviously didn't see Top Secret in the theater. I was 10. And then I don't really recall seeing it on cable either later. I don't know if it's the kind of thing where I just didn't look interesting to me, or like a lot of times I would see a movie like that. Like if my parents turned it on, I don't see either of my parents thinking this was funny. No. So yeah.
See, I also remember because after Airplane, the only other thing that these guys did was Police Squad with Leslie Nielsen on. It was ABC, and it only ran for.
They did The Naked Gun, didn't they?
But Police Squad was the TV show that Naked Gun spawned off from.
Right.
Police Squad was 6. It only ran for 6 episodes, and again, it is the same scatological sight gags. You know, I do remember one where he's investigating a murder or something, and there's a boxer, and the boxer picks up a saxophone. He goes, "I'm sorry, sir." He says, "No sax before a fight." Like just stupid. Like it just hit me in the sweet spot as a kid.
I watched that show as well, and I remember there was one detective that you never saw his face because he was
you're so tall. Yes.
And at one point, Leslie Nielsen says, "You have some food in your teeth," and then an apple falls down onto the desk.
Like to me, it's like Get Smart humor. It's just like yeah. But no, the Naked Gun movies spawned off from Police Squad.
Yes.
So yeah,
the Zuckers did the Naked Gun movies, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, and they turned down Airplane 2. They didn't want no part of it because they really said, "What am I going to do? We're gonna put someone back up on a plane, and we're gonna have to come up with another 50 jokes to fill the storyline." So that's where they went, and then decided they were getting shot down left and right, pitching ideas. Where the studio execs were looking at them like, you're joking, right? You're kidding. No, this is our pitch. He said, that's horrible. So this is where they ended up. And I'm trying to think, what have they really done after? Like they had that handful of, and Airplane was again 1980. You know, I went to the theater with my brother and a friend, and just laughed like I had never seen anything so funny in my life.
And that was kind of in its day. That was like a Mel Brooks type Spaceballs, Robin Hood Men in Tights, because there were so many airport movies in the 1970s.
Yeah.
So it was really a parody of those Irwin Allen type disasters.
And even if you know, as a kid, I knew of like, you know, Towering Inferno and stuff like that, Airplane. You know, how many, every year they came out with an airplane movie. Yeah. Airport. So anyways, if you'd never seen it, I don't even recommend it.
If you liked Airplane, you'd probably like Top Secret.
Yes, there you go. Just go for the Val Kilmer performance. Stay for Omar Sharif and Peter Cushing. And Chocolate Mousse. Latrine. Can we even give it buckets?
How many buckets?
I'll stick with my 3.5.
3.5, really?
I will say I enjoyed it immensely. I think part of it is funny is that Christina hates it. I'm like your freaking husband right now. I'm laughing at you. You're sitting there, you're yawning, you're stoic. You're like, what do I have to do today? I have the laundry to do.
So
I got to finish.
Christina, what's worse? When I have like a bad movie like Laser Blast or something that borderline offends
that is a good question.
Wait, Jim, it's so funny that you mentioned Laser Blast because, again, my husband didn't really laugh at this either. I think a couple times he went, ha, you know, like that. He said to me, I would rather watch Laser Blast.
Laser Blast for the win. Oh, wow.
For me, I'm going to give it a 1 for Val Kilmer. That's because he is somehow like defying the material. I'm saying a 1 because this does not appeal to me. I'm not saying it's a 1 because it's empirically a bad movie or like it has
you're right though. Comedy is so subjective.
Is really more than I think comedy and horror I think are the two
and there's nothing worse than when you find something so entertaining that you want to share it with somebody and then they're like that was Hellboy. I came back from the theater and I just absolutely loved Hellboy. I love the relationship. Trish, you got to watch this. I sit down when it comes out on disc. I sit down with my wife and she loves her romance novels and she was just like, this is horrible. And I'm just like, no, I like it.
See, now Hellboy, my whole family loves Hellboy. So you can come to our house, Chuck.
Okay, there you go.
Watch Hellboy with us.
Boom.
I think it's just comedy is so personal. Comedy is really personal.
Like I said, it's a Three Stooges effect. It's
See, I thought it was funny in spots. I'll give it 2 3/4.
It's more than
right under 3, simmering under 3.
Simmering.
So shall we move on?
We have to move on at this point.
Guess what, guys? I'm actually prepared for the confessional.
Whoa.
Yes.
So should we let you go first?
You got stuff written down there? You got stuff written down?
I looked stuff up ahead of time and I wrote it down. I'm not desperately trying
to
quickly write something while you guys talk, which I've
Jim
done
did a pretty good job
weeks.
at editing some of that.
So if you haven't realized already, our confessional this week
Confessionals
is going to be based around what we were enjoying back in 1984, much like we did in the past 2 weeks, 85, 87, and now we're all the way back to 1984. So we might as well start with Christina. If she's ready to go.
Let's go.
I'm actually ready. Yes.
Boom.
So again, my criteria has been for these weeks to actually pick things that I liked at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that's really important because I know you guys don't like it when I talk about how I was younger than you, but in 1984, I was not allowed to watch The Terminator. Okay, I was only 10 years old. So obviously that's a movie that I love now or that I saw later on video, you know, when I was a little older, but I was not allowed to watch it in 1984. So movie-wise, this is a pretty big year for me because
it was a big year for all of us.
The Never-Ending Story came out, and I loved that book. And pretty much if there was ever a book of anything, I always read the book. So But I've mentioned before on this show that like anything that had a fantasy element, I would just sort of like grab onto and latch onto, because there just weren't a lot of fantasy movies that came out every year. So I loved The Neverending Story. Obviously, I went to see Ghostbusters. I went to see Gremlins. Yep. The Imperial Theater in Wappingers Falls had 2 screens.
Yes.
And for like 8 weeks, they only showed Ghostbusters and Gremlins.
Wow.
And I saw Ghostbusters 3 times, and I saw Gremlins twice. And part of that was because, like, I lived in the village of Wappingers, and the Imperial Theater was basically on the other side of the village from my house. So my mom would just drop us off at the movies, run our errands, and come back.
You know what I loved about that theater was the long lobby. It was really like an entrance when you walked into that theater, and they still had lobby cards out. I was going to say
lobby cards and posters. Yeah,
it was an old-fashioned theater. It was a really nice theater. I was sad when it got torn down. But I remember first seeing Gremlins. My whole Girl Scout troop went to see Gremlins. Nice. And then I went to see it again, and Splash came out that year. I loved Splash. Romancing the Stone.
Yeah.
You're hitting all mine.
Yeah. And Karate Kid. Those were like my big movies from that year. So music wise, I know you guys know I loved Duran Duran, and Seven and the Ragged Tiger had come out, and that was my favorite Duran Duran album then, and it's still my favorite Duran Duran album.
Wild Boys on that?
The Reflex.
No, that came out later in the year. Wild Boys
right?
was on Arena.
Arena,
which was the end of the year. That was October.
Yeah.
Arena, that's right.
So the Reflex was a big hit from that year. Loved Culture Club. I had Color by Numbers.
Who didn't?
Chameleon. Miss Me Blind was actually my favorite Culture Club. Purple Rain came out that year. Everyone I knew had a copy of Purple Rain.
Yeah. That was a prerequisite. You needed that. You can't talk about 84 without talking the movie and the soundtracks.
Yeah.
Because Footloose.
That was the next thing on my list was Footloose, because I loved like Let's Hear It for the Boy and Holding Out for a Hero.
Yep.
Even Somebody's Eyes, I remember I loved that song. I listened to that Footloose soundtrack like 150 times. And then I remember, this is sort of random, but for some weird, I don't know if you guys remember if you had HBO like in the early days, but HBO used to sometimes run videos in between movies.
Like music videos?
Like music videos. Like you'd see like an ABBA video or something like that.
And they actually had their own show, Video Jukebox. It was like a half an hour of music videos.
I remember seeing the video for Yes's Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Oh, that's
on HBO, and I became obsessed with this video. It's not the kind of thing I would normally listen to, but I remember I really liked that song.
Yeah.
I really liked that video. And then
90215, what is that?
Yeah.
TV wise, everybody in the country was watching The Cosby Show. I was too. Punky Brewster. And obviously I saw V.
Yep.
And I also remember I was still into cartoons. I liked the Muppet Babies.
Muppet Babies. Yeah, because they had a little Star Wars reference in the opening thing with the Darth Vader TIE Fighter. I watched the Muppet Babies. I didn't even go down to cartoons on set. Good call on that one.
I was still lamenting the loss of the Muppet Show years later, and I thought the Muppet Babies was a sad substitute.
That was
the Muppet
fun.
Show.
I like the Muppet Babies.
But I was 10, so I was like, yay.
I was not. And I still enjoyed it. I did have a sister who was 10 years younger than me, so I could always.
That's right. You could just sit with her and watch Muppet Babies.
We did watch a lot of Smurfs.
All right. That's it for me. I've exhausted 1984.
You did. You hit a lot of them. Jim, you want to go next?
Okay. All the same movies that Christina mentioned. I was right there in the theater as well, but she did not mention Indiana Jones and
Temple of
Doom. And I remember I won tickets from WPDH, our local album-oriented rock station, 2 tickets for opening night at the Roosevelt.
Wow, really?
Which was at the time, now it's been broken up into 4 screens, but at the time it was a 1-screen theater, and it was the biggest indoor screen in the Hudson Valley. And that was like event movie going when you went to the Roosevelt. And I didn't like it as much as Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I still love it. I still think it's a great movie, and I enjoy watching it. The whole scene with the bugs, that really affected me on like a level that I was unsure that I even had at that time. I didn't even know I was afraid of bugs until I saw Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
I do not like this.
Musically, Purple Rain was the biggest thing for me that summer. I wore out that cassette tape. You know, when you are listening to a cassette and you hear that like dog whistle sound because it's been listened to so many times. That's probably
cassette or vinyl?
Cassette. Everything was about cassette in the 80s.
Yep, sure was.
Vinyl was so passé that everything I had was on cassette.
Yep.
U2's The Unforgettable Fire came out that year. I didn't actually buy it until the following year, but I loved Pride in the Name of Love. Whenever that came on the radio, I would be there with my cassette player and try and record it. Blue Jean came out that year. Bowie. I wasn't a huge Bowie fan yet, but I liked that song. Howard Jones, I was a big fan of that first album. Let's see, Billy Idol, the Rebel Yell cassette I had. And he had like 7 or 8 singles off of that, which was...
Yeah, it was a big album.
Yeah. And let's see, Band-Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas, was 1984. Loved that video because everybody in Band-Aid I loved.
Yeah, because it was all the new wave guys.
It was every member of Duran Duran was in the video. Sting was in the video. Bono was in the video. And I love the song, too. It's, you know, some people think it's cheesy, but I love the song. Wild Boys, as we mentioned before, loved it. And the weird thing is that WPDH now would never, ever play Duran Duran. But I remember specifically hearing it on WPDH for the first time. And it's still one of my favorite.
Like, nuh-uh.
Still one of my favorite Duran Duran songs.
Oh, absolutely. Reflex and Wild Boys, right up there as the top 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I was still coming off my metal phase in 1984. So I remember having Twisted Sister with I Want to Rock.
You're getting into my stuff now. Yep.
I remember having the Dio album, Last in Line. Judas Priest, Defenders of the Faith.
Scorpions, Love at First Thing. What about Van Halen, 1984?
1984, although that was really played out. By the end of the year, if I never hear Hot for Teacher again, I'll be okay. I heard it enough that year.
And then the video, they played that video ad nauseum.
They did. That's why, because I watched MTV all the time in 1984.
Yeah.
And also, I have to give a shout out to the TV version of the movie Blue Thunder. It was
bad.
It only lasted 11 episodes, and it was some police unit that had this super helicopter, and it was almost like a legitimate A-team where they would go on missions every week. Yep. It had Dana Carvey in it, and Dick Butkus and Bubba Smith were also on the 2 football guys. Because I loved the Blue Thunder movie. It was one of the first R-rated movies I had gone to. My dad took me to, and I fell in love with that helicopter and that movie. And then when the show came on, I knew it was a terrible show, but I watched every episode.
You didn't have many choices.
But I preferred Blue Thunder to Airwolf.
Fight me.
And I also have to give a shout out, because I was still a wrestling fan, to TNT, which was Tuesday Night Titans, which was like a wrestling talk show. It was like based on the Tonight Show, but with wrestlers.
Is it like the Talking Dead?
And that was
like
on
they would
the
wrestle
USA
and then
Network.
they would just talk about
Vince McMahon would be the Johnny Carson, and then Roddy Piper would come out and beat up Vince McMahon.
I was gonna say every night they would just beat each other up anyway.
Yes, that's what really.
So it was wrestling with a couch.
Yes.
Okay.
It was. Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. You guys did not leave a single movie. I never saw Terminator in the theater, but I knew this movie inside out because my friend John Eckenstern, who his dad used to take him to the movies, came into class and broke down this entire movie, probably spent an entire hour telling me every single scene in this movie. So when I finally did see it, I knew it. Splash, I saw in the drive-in, and I swear to this day, when she climbs out of Liberty Island, she's wearing pants.
I mean, maybe. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Well, it's cropped now because, again, the drive-in, the old school drive-in screens and the way that they filmed movies back then were square. She had pants on.
Well, she's got bare bottom now, right? When you watch it.
I think it's cropped. Yeah, I have seen it since where you see her buttocks, and then there's other times where it's cropped right at the bottom of her spinal cord. And again, maybe that's one of those things I just misremembered. Maybe I just wasn't ready for mermaid butt, but I do remember pants. Romancing the Stone was huge.
Yeah.
My buddy Dennis had a birthday party, and we left his birthday party to drive to the mall, which is a good 25-minute drive, to go watch Romancing the Stone. And when Joan Wilder, when they go and they meet the guy, you go, Joan Wilder, Joan Wilder? And then, they're, oh, my little mule, Pepe. And it's a stupid Jeep. And we're like, this is the greatest movie ever. Love Romancing the Stone. Purple Rain, I saw at a midnight showing, and I went with my friend Tammy, who was one of my best friends. She grew up on the hill with me. And that scene, it's, for lack of a better term, sexual scene, was very uncomfortable sitting next to one of your best friends. It was just...
I have to tell you, my aunt and uncle wanted to take me to see Purple Rain. My parents wouldn't let them.
No.
They would not let them.
That prince was he was
I ended up seeing Bachelor Party instead.
Bachelor Party. I didn't see Bachelor Party until it came out on disc.
Which was 10 times worse in retrospect.
Oh, Bachelor Party's great. That's great. Imagine both those movies came out the same year for Tom Hanks.
Yeah, they
Flash
did.
And Bachelor Party. That's his coming out right there. He's like Val Kilmer. He's never looked back. Temple of Doom.
He'd been on a TV show.
Oh, well, I understand. Oh, don't even get me started on Bosom Buddies, because I met Pete Scolari. I told him my love for that show. If you buy, I have the 2 seasons on disc, but they swapped out the Billy Joel song because apparently they could not get the rights. It's not the same. It is not the same watching that opening. It's not on the disc. So Temple of Doom's another one I never saw in the theater, but I did have the Marvel comic adaptation.
You never saw Temple of Doom in the theater?
Nope. I had to wait for it.
How?
But that's 84, so I wasn't, there was driving, like...
You were a teenager.
Yeah, but you also have to realize, like, my parents were divorced, and every other weekend I had to go to my dad's house. And so only when I was at my mom's house did I go to the drive-in with my buddy Dennis when he got his driver's license. So this was my junior year in high school. So it was like I was just starting to get in, I remember Ghostbusters in the drive-in was just, like massive. Like, we got to go see this. So, but there was a lot of stuff I didn't see. Like I said, Terminator and Temple of Doom were 2 big ones I did not see.
Speaking of Romancing the Stone, I didn't share this, but when I saw that, it was a sneak preview. And because we just happened to be in the right place at the right time, didn't know what it was at all. And the audience was just blown away by it.
It's such a great movie.
It's one of the best audience experiences I think I've had.
Oh, that's cool.
Theater.
That's such a great example of like how an audience can really enhance your experience of the film. And my husband and I were talking about this yesterday because, he's saying, a lot of people probably won't go back to the theater and they'll just abandon the big screen experience. But I really think there's something to be said for, like, first of all, when you have a positive audience experience, like the one Jim's talking about, where everyone's sort of like swept up in the same emotion and you can sort of feel it collectively. But I think the biggest thing about the theater experience is that you experience the film the way the filmmakers intended.
Yes,
they want you to watch it from beginning to end. They don't want you to stop and go pee or get a cup of coffee.
Checking your phone.
Or check your phone, right? Or be distracted by something else, which always happens in the house. And I feel like horror movies in particular suffer from the at-home experience because it's so easy to break up the tension by pausing the movie. Yeah.
Although when we watch movies on VHS, like, you wouldn't think to pause it. Now it's like, my DVR, stop it, I can, but back then, I mean, once you sat down to watch a movie, you sat down to watch a movie. But the theater experience that I remember where the audience was like completely invested was Return of the Jedi. And it's the opening scene where, Jabba's got everybody on the skiff and they're going to push Luke Skywalker into the Sarlacc pit. And he bounces out. R2 throws that lightsaber and he comes down and ignites it. And the crowd just went freaking nuts. And I'm getting goosebumps right now. And I've seen that scene 1 billion times. But in the theater, it was just like everybody was on Luke Skywalker's side. Like, yeah, kill that fat bastard. TV shows, I hit 85 couple episodes ago. Pretty much, you mentioned V, the series, because it was at the series at that point, right? It wasn't the miniseries.
I think it was the series.
It ran for one season as a weekly show. But Riptide was the only other one that I really looked at and I'm like, oh, that again, it was a silly show with a stupid robot on a boat. But Jim hit pretty much every heavy metal album. Rush, Grace Under Pressure was another one that was big. But two of my all-time favorite Queen songs came off of The Works. Radio Gaga, and I Want to Break Free. And that video, I Want to Break Free, where they're all dressed in drag, vacuuming the floors in pearls, and it was just like, all right, I'm in. So, but yeah, that was huge heavy metal for me at that time. So again, like you said, Scorpions, Dio, Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry album.
Yeah,
and
they were a good one, right?
Heavy rotation on MTV, that video.
Because it had Niedermeyer in the videos.
Yeah, who I'd never even seen Animal House at the time, so I had no point of reference. But
I picture you as a Night Court guy, Jeff.
I did like Night Court. There was a lot of stuff going on. Like you said, you didn't really have a lot of choices, so you know, everybody. Thursday night was must watch television, so it was Cosby Show. It was Cheers, which I mentioned last go round. Monster year right there.
1984, I think, is sort of like when New Wave is really kind of peaking in the U.S. There were so many songs that I loved from that era. And I just want to mention, if you also love songs from that era, there's a great book that came out a couple of years ago, maybe, called Mad World. And it's an oral history of all the hits of the New Wave era. So
yes, I've read that actually.
It's a great book because they bring the bands in or the songwriters, because it's not always the songwriters, the songwriters and the band are not always the same thing, especially from that era.
Right.
And talk about a lot of these big songs that were a lot of them were like one-hit wonders for these bands.
Right.
And it's great. If you love music from this era, I really, really recommend it. One of them that I remember I found the most fascinating was the chapter on Animotion, right? Obsession.
Yes.
And just the way the band feels about that song now versus the songwriter.
Because they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do that song. Yet without it, then who would ever hear it?
Nobody, right.
Fascinating book if you love music from that period, and it's in essay format, so it's like you can pick it up, you can read an essay, you can put it down.
Mad World, you said Mad World.
Yeah, it's called Mad World.
Is that a reference to
the Tears for Fears?
Tears for Fears, yeah.
It's great.
As much as I don't want to, we're going to have to leave.
We have to leave 1984. Actually, I apologize. We ran out of plutonium. We can't get back now. So we're now stuck. We are stuck forever in 1984.
How convenient. So next week we're going to be doing Gremlins and Ghostbusters. No.
Yay! Yay! We'll so do that over our choice.
Oh, poor Jeff. Jeff doesn't want to watch our next.
Skylar was like, Dad, Drag Me to Hell is not. No, it's not as bad as you think. I said, but there's an unrated version. Are you watching the unrated version?
We'll watch the PG version.
No. I'm all in.
Well, maybe we should announce what we're watching.
Yeah. I know we're like so ahead of the curve right now. These people are like, what the are they even talking about?
Next week we are watching a new movie. It is The Relic on Netflix.
Just Relic.
Just Relic. Okay.
It's
not the.
It's available streaming. It's a new film with Emily Mortimer.
It is.
And along with Relic, we are watching Drag Me to Hell, which is the 2009 Sam Raimi movie. Now, this was, at the time, his return to his horror roots after being known as the Spider-Man director.
I've been rewatching those two Spider-Man. I refuse to even watch the third one, but they're on Showtime right now, so
they are?
I've been watching those, yes. No, I make more out of it than it is. It's not like I'm cowering behind my couch.
And I think they fit. It's got two scary old ladies.
Are there demons involved? Because my headline for the Instagram literally says Demented Old Ladies and Demons. Sounds fun.
Yeah, I think that's a good description.
I may update it once I actually see the movie.
You enjoyed Evil Dead 2, right? You enjoyed Army of Darkness. This isn't far from that.
Okay. All right. A little tongue-in-cheek? Is that what we're talking about
yes.
here?
It's still Sam Raimi.
Okay. Well, but again, my exposure to Sam Raimi has basically been, those two and Spider-Man. So
I'm hoping to be able to see Relic in the theater.
Is it going to be playing?
Yeah, it's playing down the street. So
Nice.
Music Box has like a smaller theater, and there's it's so small. Normally, I think normally maybe 100 people can fit in it. So they're only allowing 18 people in.
Wow.
Talk about
the audience, the audience experience. Like 18 people. It's like, hey, you got in too! Yay! It's like a secret club.
But they're doing a showing every day at 4:30. So I'm hoping I'll be able to, win the lottery to get in to see it. Yeah. Because like I was saying earlier, I think horror movies especially, it's better if you can watch them in the theater and just get that sort of unbroken experience. So I'm going to try really hard to get there this week and see it the way it's meant to be seen.
As we should all, the way it was meant to be seen.
Right, so we hope to have you back next week.
Yes, and I hope that you would. I hope you know what? I would like it if somebody actually let us know if they enjoyed this Summer of series, because I did have a lot of fun. And we go down memory lane, and either you take that ride with us or you don't. And I'm also curious if anybody goes to check out Top Secret after this. You're like, I don't know. Are you Team Jeff or are you Team Christine?
No, that you should do a double feature: Top Secret and then Laser Blast right after.
Oh, well, I didn't even realize I own Top Secret, and it's a double disc with Airplane, which makes perfect sense. But it is bare bones. It's just the movie itself, and it wasn't that great of a transfer. But it's not like I needed to see that movie in 4K. That's it.
Come back next week. Thank you very much.
Thank
you. See you again next week.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you. Good for you, Marjorie.